Hi friends! Do you want to burn belly fat? Here are the top 10 fat-burning foods that can complement any diet, whether you are keto, paleo, vegan, or on a seafood diet, i.e. the standard American diet. What's even better is that many of these foods are travel friendly and they can elevate the taste of anything that you eat. Now keep in mind, not all fat is bad for you, and it's really important to burn the bad fat and build the good fat. And you'll be surprised that there are compounds that you can rub on your skin that can help you burn fat. And no, I'm not pulling your leg. Number one is to spice up your food with capsaicin. Capsaicin is a compound in this chili pepper that can make you sweat and can give you a running nose. This is a Thai chili. Let me try it. I'm just kidding. I don't eat this stuff because I know it'll make me sweat. It's going to increase my heat production, increase my metabolism, cause me to have pain. That's why I don't do it. Otherwise, it's like exercising without exercising, or a workout without a workout. Initially, it's probably going to be difficult to eat more than a pinch, but as you eat more spicy foods, you'll develop a higher and higher tolerance to spice. Capsaicin initially tricks the body into responding as if it's experiencing heat or irritation, but with repeated exposure, it can numb pain pathways by exhausting pain-mediating chemicals. So if I were to eat a Thai chili, eventually I would get used to it. Then I heard the Carolina Reaper is even worse. But on the flip side, that's why they sell capsaicin as a topical cream for pain relief. You may have used Tabasco sauce. Did you know that it can activate brown fat, which is a good fat that you need? And as we age, we lose more and more brown fat, and more belly fat or white fat creeps up. Now, when brown fat goes up, belly fat goes down. And hence, if you want to control your belly fat, you got to activate your brown fat. And capsaicin in chili is just one way to do it. Populations who eat spicier foods, they tend to gain less weight. Now, it could be that it's so spicy that they don't want to eat it, but most people develop a tolerance. Supposedly, just eating one jalapeno pepper or half a teaspoon of red pepper powder can burn 150 more calories a day. Now, to burn 150 more calories through exercise, you would have to walk at a moderate pace for at least 40 minutes, or jog for 15 minutes, or run for 12 minutes. Now, I gave up running and jogging because I figured I want my knees to last. So today I walked with my friend for about 50 minutes. Now, my brother and I, we walked our kids about 3.2 miles to a conference last weekend within about 50 minutes. The day prior, I had to go to work, so he actually walked the teenage kids. You know, mind you, these kids are both taller than us, but they were so slow that he had to Uber less than a mile left because they would have been late for the conference. And he then walked himself back to the hotel 3.5 miles despite having plantar fasciitis. That is how committed my brother is to exercise. He's just been my role model. Have you ever watched The Hot One? It's on YouTube where they interview people while they feast on spicy sauces. It's kind of crazy to me.
Oh my gosh!
What's the point of even being alive if we can't do this?
To want to force yourself to eat spicier and spicier foods. It's kind of like this study in which people ate a whole tablespoon of cayenne pepper with their high-fat meals so they can burn some of that fat off. Now remember, none of my videos are medical advice, so if you want to know if you can tolerate chili peppers, please talk to your own medical doctor. Personally, I had to slowly train myself to just tolerate a little bit of heat in my food. My mom, though, she couldn't eat food without any chili. My dad was a garlic person and my mom was a chili person. So whenever we went out, she had to have some chili sauce or chili peppers. And if a restaurant didn't have some kind of spicy sauce, she would ask for fresh chili peppers from the chef. Now, there are many varieties of chili flavors if you go to an ethnic store. You know, if you go to an Asian place, you're going to find Thai chilies very easily. And chili powder, well, that's much easier to carry than like fresh chili. This is dried. And you can actually put chili powder in a purse, on the car, in the plane. And if you're visiting a friend in the hospital, spices are a great way to perk up bland food. And I've heard food can be pretty bland in hospitals. Now, there are several other spices that burn fat, but you have to focus on the right fat and burn it in the right way. Did you know that your body actually has several different types of fat? White fat, brown fat, beige fat, pink fat, and essential fat. A collection of body fat is called adipose tissue, but it's not just fat cells. There are also nerve cells, immune cells, connective tissue, all holding the adipose tissue together. And fat is not just a depot for energy storage. Actually, white fat is primarily supposed to store energy. In general, all different types of adipose tissue are metabolically active organs, releasing metabolic hormones that control your metabolism and your appetite, which together determine your insulin sensitivity. Now, if you've ever cuddled an infant, you know how they are so warm and soft and squishy. You are cuddling brown fat that protects them from the cold. Activating brown fat increases metabolic rate to keep their core temperature constant. And it's important to do that to preserve the optimal function of the baby's organs. Now, unfortunately, the visceral fat in an adult belly, it may be insulation to keep you warm, but it is not metabolically protective, and it's unable to get activated to protect you from hypothermia. Hypothermia is a condition in which the body has low body temperature, and this occurs when the body's core temperature drops to below 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius, and this can lead to dangerous physiological changes in your organs. This can happen due to prolonged exposure to cold environments, like going in cold water or under certain medical conditions. And initially, when you have mild hypothermia, that's between 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, your symptoms include shivering, confusion, numbness of the extremities, as well as fast breathing. But then when you progress to moderate hypothermia, that's a temperature between 82 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 28 to 32 degrees Celsius. Your symptoms are weak pulse, slowed breathing, and extreme confusion. And when you have severe hypothermia, that's a temperature below 82 degrees or less than 28 degrees Celsius, you basically pass out and you no longer shiver, and you actually can stop your heart or have a cardiac arrest. And this is why you don't want to just do a cold water plunge, even though we know cold exposure activates brown fat. If you want to do something like that, just start with a cold shower. Make sure you can tolerate it. And your own body can also cause you to be hypothermic. Heard of sepsis? That's a condition in which there is an overwhelming infection, and hypothermia happens through a complex immune system with your circulatory system in balance. So typically when you get an infection, lots of people have a fever, and that's a normal response due to pyrogens triggering the hypothalamus in your brain. But in sepsis, the immune system causes a dysregulation that can lead to hypothermia instead. Widespread inflammation, along with the release of molecules called pro-inflammatory cytokines like tumor necrosis factor or interleukins, they initially may cause a fever response. However, when you have severe sepsis or septic shock, which can happen in people who are elderly, malnourished, immunocompromised, or just an overwhelming infection, the immune response then is dysregulated, and it often causes a blunted response to pyrogens, resulting in hypothermia rather than fever. So if you have an elderly person who looks a little off and you take their temperature and it's low, that's an emergency. You need to take them to the emergency room and get them evaluated by a physician. I was once actually septic. I had appendicitis that caused microperforation. I actually knew I was septic. By that time, I was an infectious disease doctor. I basically could feel I had an overwhelming infection, which caused intense inflammation and pain that localized to my lower right quadrant in my abdomen. And then my body started to experience widespread dilation, dilation of blood vessels. That was primarily due to the cytokines that were released that then activated nitric oxide. So my blood pressure was low, and I had low blood flow to my peripheral tissues, arms, legs, and skin. Luckily, it wasn't so bad. I was healthy enough to be able to eventually mount a fever after initially shivering. But if you don't have the right cytokines released, your core body temperature will drop, as you will limit your heat distribution with all the vasodilation. You also have impaired shivering mechanisms, which typically helps you to generate heat. And if you don't shiver, you may not be able to produce heat to keep up your core body temperature. Now, shivering is not a controllable response. Your muscles just start shaking, but you can't stop it. This is when your teeth start chattering, and that's because your hypothalamus, which is responsible for regulating your body temperature, is trying to produce heat to elevate your core body temperature when you shiver. It's supposed to be protective, but if you don't have enough perfusion, or something's wrong with the connections, you can have a blunted hypothalamic response during severe sepsis. And this more commonly happens in people who are elderly or immunocompromised, or simply just have poor blood perfusion, atherosclerosis in their brain. Now, cytokines such as interleukin-1, it can influence the hypothalamus to alter the set point temperature. But in some cases, this does not result in fever. That would have been a healthy immune response. And the opposite may happen, which results in hypothermia. So then there is a disconnect in the thermal regulatory mechanisms of the body. Sometimes that's caused by low oxygen levels or hypoxia and metabolic acidosis in sepsis, which can contribute to the body's inability to generate or retain heat. Now, as the tissue becomes deprived of oxygen, the body's ability to function optimally, including regulating temperatures, is compromised, leading to a drop in core temperature. Hence, if you have conditions like sleep apnea, you should really go see a medical doctor, a pulmonologist, to get that treated, because intermittent hypoxia can also disrupt your metabolism and affect your brown fat levels. Now, sepsis don't just mess with our hormones and cytokines. It can also cause mitochondrial dysfunction that impairs energy production or ATP production. This leads to a decreased thermogenesis in tissues. And additionally, individuals in septic shock often have impaired brown fat function, further reducing the ability for people to generate heat through non-shivering thermogenesis. Sepsis can also cause muscle dysfunction and muscle wasting. This also impairs the ability to generate heat via shivering. Now, I already mentioned sepsis reduces circulation. So the reduced circulation, along with metabolic changes, muscle breakdown, all associated with sepsis, can all contribute to the loss of the normal shivering response, which is supposed to serve as a defense against stress.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And brown fat, it appears to play an important role in mounting a normal fever response to infections. But you can't just eat fat and gain brown fat. And you can't gain weight to increase or activate brown fat. But you can activate brown fat through stimuli, such as a cold bath, or by eating cayenne pepper, capsaicin. And when you eat nature's pharmacy like capsaicin, you also get side benefits like pain reduction through inhibiting the overactivity of inflammatory molecules interacting with your nervous system. And that's why people with arthritis or psoriasis, they use creams made out of capsaicin to help their joints feel better. Cluster headaches, irritable bowel pain, and chronic indigestion appears to also improve with 1.5 teaspoons full of capsaicin daily. Now, the trick with capsaicin is that it gets better and better over time because it depletes the pain molecule called substance P. Without substance P, the neurons can't signal pain. So if you're going to try capsaicin, you may have to be patient. It may take about a week. And these properties are really not unique to cayenne pepper. Oftentimes, you will notice as time goes on, the desired effects improve, get better and better, eating all natural whole plants. But certain foods do have more fat-burning weight loss power than others. So number 2 is a biblical spice. It's called black cumin. It's basically a black seed. And if you're eating a high-carb diet, you're probably eating pasta, which keto people would consider a no-no. And pasta would be an inflammatory carbohydrate. And I think refined flour in any kind of food, whether it's pasta or bread, is not very helpful for weight loss. But if you convert that pasta to a whole grain pasta or your bread to a whole grain bread, you'll be much better off. But whatever food you decide to eat, that may not be the healthiest. You can totally make it so much healthier by adding black cumin. Black cumin is an ancient seed from Africa and South Asia, and it's eaten as a spice for bread. It's actually mentioned in the book of Isaiah and was used medicinally to treat various diseases. A quarter teaspoon of black cumin daily is a cheap appetite suppressant for pennies a day. Now, don't confuse this with regular cumin. Black cumin is Nigella sativa, shown to be beneficial for gastric ulcers, thyroid disease, and dementia symptoms. I was really impressed in this study that gave black cumin capsules 3 times a day for 3 months to those infected with hepatitis C. Now, what does burning fat have to do with hepatitis C? Well, it turns out 70% of people with hepatitis C, they also have a fatty liver. And it's impressive that an ancient seed, really a spice called black cumin, can improve symptoms of leg swelling called edema, which is a sign of a bad liver. And people with bad livers, they also have platelet dysfunction, usually low platelets. And by taking black cumin, some of these patients got their platelets up. And they also improved their fasting blood sugar levels. Unfortunately, their viral load was still high, but they did reduce it by more than half. And this study was just taking black cumin for 3 months. I wonder if they kept going, would have had made a continued difference. Now, this study was done in 2013, and that was when we had very poor treatments. We really didn't have effective therapies for hepatitis C. But today, if you live in America, we can actually cure you of hepatitis C. And you do need to be treated because hepatitis C can cause cirrhosis and cancer. So if you're 18 or over, you should know if you have hepatitis C. It's a really easy screen. Just go see your personal care provider. And if you're positive, they can do a workup, see what type of hepatitis C you have, and then offer you appropriate therapy. Number 3 is ginger. This is an ancient remedy that is used to treat so many different symptoms, from pain to headaches to joint osteoarthritis problems to irritable bowel and painful periods. Now, gingerol is the primary bioactive compound in fresh ginger that is responsible for much of the medicinal properties because it's anti-inflammatory and it's also a strong antioxidant. But if you consume ginger dry, that has even more potent gingerol, which has been shown to reduce inflammation even more compared to raw ginger. And that dry ginger with the gingerol, what can help you burn fat about 10% more than if you didn't take ginger. But it works best in the morning. Shogol is actually a compound that forms when ginger is dried or cooked. Dried ginger, I mentioned, has more gingerol compounds, which appears to be more effective in activating brown fat. There are a few ways to consume ginger. You can do what my mom did and put it in everything that she cooked. I literally used to complain about how much ginger I was eating, but she just said, it's good for you, just eat it. Now, usually when one parent is off their rockers, you could go to the other parent for some respite, right? Well, as a kid, that didn't happen because my dad was really into ginger tea. So every time I got sick, he would give me what looked like a giant glass of ginger tea, and he wouldn't let me off the dinner table until I finished it. When I was facing the ginger tea, I would have preferred eating my mom's food. And you may have tried ginger tea and thought, it's not so bad. Well, you didn't try my dad's ginger tea. He put like a boatload of ginger with a little bit of water, I think. And so it's super concentrated. Ginger has been traditionally used to relieve symptoms of common cold, especially sore throat and flu symptoms for thousands of years. The bioactive compounds like gingerol and zingerone, well, it actually turns out to interfere with the ability of germs to attach to your cells. So if it doesn't attach to your cells, then it can't keep going in to replicate. Ginger also helps by inhibiting the production of cytokines, which is what causes inflammation to give you your symptoms. So if you make less cytokines like tumor necrosis alpha or interleukin 6, then you have less of the characteristic symptoms of the common cold, such as fevers and body aches and sore throats and congestion. Now, in the respiratory tract, ginger also blocks COX enzymes, which are involved in the production of inflammatory mediators like prostaglandins and leukotrienes. And by inhibiting these enzymes, ginger reduces overall inflammation, thereby easing symptoms like sore throat and body aches. Now, in medical school, I got the flu and I couldn't shake the cough that I lingered on for 3 months after the flu. And unfortunately, at the time, didn't make very wise choices. As a young adult, and I forgot about ginger, didn't realize it had the ability to relax smooth muscles to help with coughs. And at the time, I remember I had some nasty mucus. Once I think I coughed up a mucus plug that was square-shaped. Turns out ginger has a natural expectorant and mucolytic effect to break up mucus. So now I wise up, and oftentimes I'll take 1 or 2 teaspoons of a dried ginger spice to add to my water, or if I'm in a hurry, I'll swallow a ginger capsule, or I'll just grate it in my food. I'll eat it raw, I'll eat it dried, I eat it with sushi. It's just delicious. So far, all the spices fit into your dietary restrictions, and hopefully you're able to eat low-carb fruits. But it's important to get the ones rich in anthocyanins, like number 4, purple mulberries. Now, foods rich in anthocyanins have shown to improve insulin sensitivity to help manage weight. And did you know that mulberries have more anthocyanins than blueberries? Anthocyanins have been shown to help reduce weight by activating brown fat in animal studies. Mice fed polyphenols from mulberries lost weight specifically from fat and improved their fasting glucose, even though they ate the same amount as the mice not given mulberries. Now, we aren't mice, but losing weight also doesn't mean that people or mice get healthier or live longer. And we all know mice don't have the luxury of living very long. But these studies just illustrate the power of plant phytonutrients like anthocyanins on fat metabolism and the ability to activate brown fat. Mulberries turns out to have a low glycemic index at 25. That means it doesn't raise your blood sugars like white bread. And my parents had a mulberry tree when I was growing up, and they told me how healthy our tree was and how it was prized. But you know me, I didn't really believe them. I just ate the mulberries. You know, at the time, they would tell me all these things about food, but you know, I was a teenager. I just thought my parents really didn't know what they were talking about and they were making things up. Nevertheless, they tasted good, so I enjoyed picking them and eating them fresh from the tree. And little did I realize that eating them probably helped me slim down. My son was digging through the garage the other day and found old pictures of me. And he said, "Boy, Mom, you were fat." And yeah, I was fat because my mom fed me processed food. So I'm thankful she had mulberries. Here's a breakdown of the different types of polyphenols found in mulberries. Do you recognize any of these ingredients from my previous videos? How about number 3, chlorogenic acid? That's a polyphenol found in your morning cup of joe, your coffee. Yep, your coffee can be a fat-burning liquid. Number 5, if it has chlorogenic acid. Now, this study randomized middle-aged, non-obese people on cheap coffee, instant coffee with chlorogenic acid, or coffee without chlorogenic acid. And they all drank less than a cup a day, which is good because I can't even tolerate a cup. And then they measured what happened to their abdominal fat and weight. The chlorogenic acid coffee drinkers lost more weight in 12 weeks, and they lost more abdominal visceral fat. And this was seen on CT scans. I'm not sure I would have volunteered for a CT scan. That's just extra radiation that people don't need. It's also interesting that their total cholesterol went up by 7 points. They probably should have filtered the coffee. Unfiltered coffee will increase your cholesterol. Now keep in mind, your coffee may not have chlorogenic acid. Look at this table. You will lose a ton of chlorogenic acid if you're roasting your coffee. So dark roasted coffee barely has any chlorogenic acid. And at the same time, it does bring out more caffeine. And if you add sugar to the coffee, well, that's going to nullify a lot of the weight loss benefits of that chlorogenic acid. But probably what's even worse is adding casein protein found in milk and dairy, because it binds to the chlorogenic acid and it's as if you're drinking coffee without any chlorogenic acid. Now, have you ever debated on which country you should buy your coffee? I still have not bought coffee. But here's a chart of chlorogenic acid versus caffeine ratios. And from this graph, Ethiopian coffee ranks highest, and people drink coffee to boost their autophagy, which in animal studies have been shown to live 17% longer. Now, if you drink espresso, you may be interested in this table. Notice how there's barely any chlorogenic acid at Starbucks. You get a little bit more if you drink their cappuccino, which is still less than you would get if you just bought some cheap instant type from the supermarket. So if you want to know how much chlorogenic acid to target, well, in this study, they found that drinking 500 milligrams of chlorogenic acid a day actually helped to reduce weight. Caffeine, by the way, also reduces weight loss, but it has a lot of neurological side effects that can induce diarrhea, excess urination, heart arrhythmias, and sleep disturbances. So I wouldn't target increasing caffeine. But if you're already drinking a chlorogenic acid-rich caffeinated coffee and you're not losing weight, then that may be because you're adding a lot of condiments in your coffee that's counteracting your weight loss goals. Now, number 6 may surprise you. They are grape seeds. This study overfed people, asked them to snack on sodas, chocolate bread, chips, and chocolate bars. That sounds delicious and really was exactly what I ate when I grew up. However, the study gave one group of participants a dummy pill, and the second group got pills stuffed with grape extracts rich in polyphenols, and then they biopsied their fat. So the amount of grape seeds that they ate were equivalent to about 4 cups of grapes, which I can easily eat in one sitting. And did you know that you can gain 22 pounds of subcutaneous fat before it actually adversely affects your metabolism? And that's why people don't see the consequences of metabolic diseases for several years. Now, subcutaneous fat is the fat you can pinch. It's right underneath your skin. However, when you gain fat or adipose tissue, you don't actually gain more blood vessels to feed the fat cells. It's like having more people, but not allowing people to drink more water. It's like in California, we have a drought. We keep expanding the population, but we're not increasing the water supply. So the people at the periphery may have their water turned off, right? So the fat cells at the periphery may lack blood flow. And this causes them to send SOS signals. And in turn, fatty acids and inflammatory signals then enter the bloodstream. So in this study, after about a month, the people with the grape seed extracts, they actually showed multiple changes in their genes, which you can see in the purple. And I mentioned that these people volunteered for a biopsy. So when they looked at the fat tissue under the microscope, they actually saw less blood vessels growing in their body fat, bringing less nutrients to fat cells. And the thing is, when you don't get blood flow, you actually don't grow fat cells. So the group which took grapeseed extracts gained less weight. But they still gain weight because they were eating junk, just less weight. So basically, you can't supplement your way through a bad diet, even though people keep trying to do that. And if you're on a keto diet, you're really sensitive about sugar spikes. So you may be afraid of eating an entire grape. Well, then you can just focus on the peel and the seed and give the pulp to your kids. That's what I used to do when I first introduced grapes to my kids, because the peel is actually a choking hazard, and so are the seeds. So remember, if you're going to give your kids grape, you may want to peel it or cut it up into small segments until they have better control of their swallowing. And I covet the peel and the seeds of fruits because essentially they house the majority of the polyphenols. My son complains that sometimes grape seeds are super hard and that it was going to break his teeth. And I admit they sometimes are pretty hard. So if that's the case, then you may want to use a blender. Now, if you have diabetes or prediabetes, hopefully knowing that grapes are not a high glycemic index food will bring you comfort to eat them. But if you process it, that will change the glycemic index and you release the sugars much more quickly. Now, number 7 are blueberries. If you can buy them wild, that's preferable. They are super powerful, full of anthocyanins. I actually blend them in a smoothie to give it to my family because berries have been shown to be so much friendlier to blood sugar spikes. In fact, this study showed that berries, unlike other fruits, when you blend it, you don't actually get the blood sugar spikes and then the insulin spikes. But I wouldn't blend apples and other fruits because it could do that. And so what's so special about berries? Well, if you think about it, it's that blue color and they're full of seeds. And those peels and seeds are full of anthocyanins that induce fat burning, lowers insulin resistance, and protects your DNA from daily damage from the toxins in your environment and your food. So when you eat anthocyanins, actually many of them go unabsorbed in your small intestine. They reach your large intestine where the majority of your 80 trillion gut microbes feast. And when they're feasting, they are fermenting your food. They, in turn, make beneficial molecules to improve your metabolism. And in fact, over time, even drinking blueberry smoothies daily can improve your insulin sensitivity. And this study didn't even use fresh blueberries. They used freeze-dried berries. Now, you may be wondering if frozen or dried berries are as good as fresh berries. The short answer is no, because they are different processing methods. To maintain the most polyphenols, freeze-drying actually is best, and may even have more polyphenols than fresh because fresh may have been sitting around like in the truck, and it's not literally fresh picked from the bush. But overall, fresh may have more total antioxidant power. But if you start adding stuff like salt or sugar, you can actually lose 50% of the antioxidants. And of course, if you're eating gummies, well, that's just eating candy. Number 8 is another excellent berry. I've seen that some markets sell white colored raspberries, which to me is a ripoff because I'm only buying the food for its color. When it's missing the color, it's missing colorful anthocyanins. Don't buy those. Anthocyanins can burn fat 3 times better than capsaicin in this chili. And this fact made headlines over 20 years ago. So if you search on PubMed, you'll find 135 publications on the mechanisms of raspberry compounds and mammalian fat burning. But remember, just eat whole fruits and you'll get the side benefits like reducing blood pressure. Now, number 9 are blackberries, which are grown wild in Washington and Oregon. And they too have been shown to improve fat burning and insulin sensitivity. Now, don't you think the government should stop subsidizing grains and put those subsidies into fresh berries so that they're cheaper for everyone? Organic is even more expensive, which I can afford now, but for most of my adult life, I couldn't. Berries, like strawberries, are always on the dirty dozen list. And honestly, if I can't find organic, I will still buy conventional. I just wash them, which removes about 50% of the pesticide. If you soak them straight in white table vinegar, or if you make a 10% salt solution with 1 part salt and 9 parts water, you can then remove just about all the pesticide that's on the surface. Now, number 10 is my favorite tea flavor, peppermint. I love that minty flavor, which is from menthol. Menthol can activate brown fat. Unfortunately, when you drink peppermint tea, your liver actually rapidly metabolizes menthol to remove it so that it doesn't actually activate brown fat. But the way to get around a liver is to rub it on your skin. And half a teaspoon of peppermint essential oil with menthol can get a significant rise in resting metabolic rate within hours. I use peppermint essential oil every day, actually because it opens up my airways. And I try not to diffuse it because I have pets and I don't know if it's good or bad for our pets. But I will rub it on my skin, especially in spots that feel sore after a workout. Menthol reduces blood flow to then reduce inflammation. It's like an instant cold pack. And if you've ever suffered from chronic migraines, rubbing menthol on your forehead or temple may actually be helpful. But remember, don't get the stuff in your eyes. Essential oils can burn. Now, keep in mind that adding these foods or food components can only go so far if you don't change the bulk of what you're eating that makes you gain visceral fat or that belly fat. If you want to learn more about how to target the best foods to eat, then watch the next video.